All right, let's dive into one of America's oldest and honestly most famous historical mysteries. We're talking about the lost colony of Roanoke. And here's the central question, and it's a real chilling one. In 1590, where did 115 people go? I mean, an entire community, men, women, and children. They simply vanished. And when I say vanished, I mean poof, gone. The governor comes back after this 3-year delay, right? And he finds the settlement totally dismantled. No bodies, no signs of a fight, just nothing. Absolutely nothing to explain where an entire population went. Well, almost nothing. There was one clue. The only thing they left behind was a single word carved into a post. Just one word that has kicked off, centuries of debate and speculation, and that word was Croatoan. So, to really get how this could even happen, we've got to rewind a bit. Back in the late 1500s, England was seriously trying to catch up with Spain. Spain was getting super rich from its colonies in the Americas, and England wanted in on that action. Land, resources, power, the whole shebang. And Roanoke, that was their big gamble. Okay, so the English actually tried this a few times. Their first shot in 1584, that was just an exploration trip. The reports came back super positive, which kind of set the stage for everything else. Then, in 1585, they sent soldiers to find gold. But the third time, in 1587, that was the one. That was different. This time, they sent families to build a real, permanent settlement. And you can see this huge shift in strategy, right? The 1585 trip was all soldiers looking for gold, and it was a total disaster, just created a bunch of conflict. So for the 1587 trip, they sent regular families, people who actually wanted to build homes and a community. It was a completely different vibe, but they were about to inherit all the problems the soldiers had created. Yeah, and here's a really critical mistake. During that military expedition in 1585, the soldiers accused a local Native American of stealing a silver cup. And their reaction? They burned down an entire village. Think about that. That one act, that one over-the-top reaction, poisoned relations and created this deep-seated hostility that the new families in 1587 were walking right into. All right, so now we're in a new phase. A promised trip becomes an eternity. The new colony gets there in 1587. And pretty much right away, things start to go south. They're facing a tough winter, supplies are running low, so they beg their governor, John White, to sail back to England for help. And let me tell you, this decision, it sealed their fate. And John White really did not want to go. I mean, he was leaving his own family behind, his daughter Eleanor and his brand new granddaughter Virginia Dare, who, by the way, was the very first English child born in the Americas. But he promised he'd be back as fast as he could. Just 3 years. What was supposed to be a trip for a few months turned into 3. Can you even imagine? For the 115 people waiting for him, that must have felt like an absolute eternity. So what was the reason for this huge delay? Well, it was a massive geopolitical event, war with the Spanish Armada. England was at war with Spain. Every single English ship was needed for the battle. And the colony, the people at Roanoke, they were just tragically forgotten. Okay, let's get into the Croatoan investigation. So when White finally gets back in 1590, all he finds is that one word carved into the post, Croatoan. Now, to us, that sounds super mysterious, right? But for John White, it was actually a sign of hope. See, Croatoan wasn't just some random word. It meant 2 things. It was the name of a nearby island, what we call Hatteras Island today, and it was also the name of a local Native American group that was known to be friendly with the English. So the clue was actually pointing them to a specific place and a specific group of people. And here's the kicker. This was all part of the plan. Before White left, he and the colonists made an agreement. They said, look, if we have to move, we'll carve our destination into a tree, and we'll only add a cross if we're in danger. And the Croatoan carving, there was no cross. This told White that they had probably moved on purpose, and that they were safe when they did it. So, where did they go? Well, historians have a few leading theories based on the evidence. The first one is the most obvious, right? They just went to Croatoan Island, just like the message said. A second theory is that at least some of them moved about 50 miles inland. And then there's a third, much darker possibility, that they were attacked by the powerful Powhatan tribe. And listen, this isn't just guesswork. We have actual physical evidence. Archaeologists found English pottery, the stuff called borderware from the 1580s, at a site 50 miles inland. That's hard evidence that at least some of the colonists made it there and were living there. And there are other clues that kind of back all this up. You have Native American oral histories that talk about ancestors with pale skin. The famous explorer John Smith from the Jamestown colony even reported hearing that the Powhatan tribe had attacked a group of settlers. And get this, as White's ship was passing by Croatoan Island, they saw fires. It really seems like the colonists split up and different groups probably had very different fates. So let's talk about the Roanoke legacy. We tend to think of this as just a spooky mystery story, right? A ghost story. But when you look at all the evidence, it points to something way more complex and honestly, more human. It's a story of survival, not just a mystery. The modern consensus among historians is that the colonists didn't just vanish. The most likely answer is that they split into smaller groups and assimilated with local tribes to survive. Some probably went to Croatoan, others went inland. They didn't just disappear into thin air. They became part of the local communities in a desperate attempt to just stay alive. And this leads to a really powerful what if. One historian made the point that if those English soldiers back in 1585 had just responded peacefully, if they hadn't burned that village, Roanoke could have been the first successful English colony. The whole story would have been different. So how could one silver cup change history? I mean, it's this huge story of war and bad luck and survival, but it might all come down to one single rash decision. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How different would American history be if it weren't for a single stolen silver cup?